Alright, I know I usually do like really funny ones, but given the subject matter, yeah, it's cool if I like cool it down with jokes a little bit. Cool. So, on August 6, 1945, the city of Hiroshima was destroyed by an atomic bomb dropped by the US. 3 days later, another bomb was dropped over the city of Nagasaki. This would lead to the deaths, right here, of between 100 to 230,000 civilians. Due to both the bomb itself and the lasting radioactive fallout. This is, and continues to be, the only use of atomic weaponry in war. Now I'm going to make a very controversial statement, especially people who don't really know a lot about World War II, and say that the total destruction of the innocent people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was in fact the best choice the United States could have made in that situation. Not a good choice, not a good thing, but the best choice of that bad situation. All right, let's go with the, so I'm gonna kind of, let's start with the most common perfect answer that people give, especially those who don't know a lot about World War II history, and that is, Italy had already done its little switcheroo. Hitler had a mind-blowing wedding night. So Japan was the only one left in the war, so there was no real, Japan was the only one left in the war, so there's no real like support they have. So if we just kind of fought a war of attrition, they would have been knocked out eventually. There's a big error in that statement, and that's that you're not thinking like a Japanese soldier. In World War II, Japanese pilots would do kamikazes, where they would literally fly their planes as suicide pilots into important buildings and blow them up. If you, in Japanese history, it's worse to die as a coward than to die as a hero. But you'd think that better had to be against us, but it wouldn't be actually. Does anyone know what country this is? Someone want to tell me what country this is? Russia, right. And in 1945, what political and economic system did Russia have? Communism. And who was in charge of Russia? Stalin had a little mustache, but not the other mustache guy. So Russia, we in America we kind of downplay the importance of Russia on the World War II. To be honest, they had the most casualties and the most kills during World War II, and it was actually them more than America that the Japanese were afraid of. Their attack on Manchuria during the Liberation War of 1945 is considered one of the major reasons that Japan unconditionally surrendered. This is a picture, I believe, of of Russian soldiers celebrating the victory after the Liberation War. But Russia has had a tendency to not give back the land that they took during the war. This is a modern day map, but places like Poland and Eastern Germany continue to stay Russian despite the fact that they were told to not still be Russian and would be basically puppet states. So that's not something you want Stalin to have. So if we hadn't bombed Japan, that would be something that Stalin would eventually take over, and you wouldn't want Stalin to have this whole sphere of influence. But that's not the reason I say that not dropping the atomic bomb is a bad thing. Historians usually agree that one of the major factors of the European powers going to war for World War I wasn't because they cared about some random archduke, but was instead to test off their new military weaponry. For example, this is a machine gun from the era, and there's like mustard gas, and basically ever since the Napoleonic War, and I'm throwing a lot of wars at you, just know that war is bad. But after the Napoleonic War, Europe started building up weapons, and they wanted to test them out, and they tested them out during World War I, and it was terrible. And that's what led to the Geneva Conventions, and basically being like, all right, we need rules for war because if we keep using the weapons we're using now, it's just slaughter. So, I'm going to ask you this. If the United States hadn't dropped the atomic bomb and seen the radioactive fallout that came from that and all the damage it caused afterwards, do you think we would be so hesitant to use the atomic bomb to solve all of our problems? Not very likely. I mean, we still use drones. We don't know the long-term effects of drone warfare and its effects on combat. But I know what you're saying because I can read minds. All right, so what you're probably saying to yourself is, yeah, okay, I get it. We had to go into Japan, but did we have to use atomic bombs? And unfortunately, the answer is actually yes, because we had another plan before Truman learned about the atomic bombs, and that was Operation Downfall. So there's two parts. There's Operation Olympic, which was planning an invasion of right here, Kyushu, and this part, Operation Coronet, which is planning an invasion on, I'm sorry, they're Japanese names, so I don't really know them, on Honshu. But the Japanese knew that this was the Americans' plan, so they had their own operation, Operation Decisive, and it's estimated that the Operation Olympic alone would have killed 268,000 Allied soldiers alone, which is already double the statistics from the dropping of the atomic bombs. And Operation Decisive would have involved the deaths of 3 million Japanese soldiers alone. Soldiers who would fight, again, who would fight to the death if needed. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So, as you can see, either dropping the atomic bomb or losing more than 3 million people, kind of the better option to drop the bomb. I'm going to end my speech with a quote from one of my favorite writers, Kay Applegate. She wrote the Animorphs series. Has anyone read Animorphs? So you know exactly why I'm talking about Animorphs. Because the big theme in Animorphs isn't that the kids can turn into animals. It's in fact the brutal devastation of war and how child soldiers, not a good thing. So the end of the book, she comes, like one of the main characters basically gets involved in another war. A lot of the other characters die. It's a very sad moment. And so a lot of readers wrote in, were like, hey, I wanted a happy ending. Why didn't I get a happy ending? She ended back with this. Here's what doesn't happen in a war. There's no wondrous climactic battles that leave the good guys standing tall and the bad guys lying in the dirt. Life isn't World Wrestling Federation SmackDown. Even the people who win a war, who survive and come out the other side with the conviction that they have done something brave and necessary, don't do a lot of celebrating. So when someone proposes a war, remember that even the most necessary wars, even the rare wars where there's good and evil, where the lines of good and evil are clear and clean, end with a lot of people dead, a lot of people crippled, and a lot of orphans, widows, and grieving parents. War isn't black and white, and sometimes the gray, no matter how bad the result, is the best option to take.